You gonna open? Okay, we're open. Just the fudging cash for throwing. Yeah. You're entire. Yeah, definitely. That's definitely what just it is. So this is part of a problem of just being the really high OS on Geo. You kind of have to do things that are better than making three Mausers, and it gets really weird at the very high levels. But just making Mausers will be like is 40 OS. You can never go wrong doing. Tina, I'm supposed to be using you as an example here. Yeah, he gets a small wind boost from this guy. 4 wins, goes into some res bots, goes into heavy grunts. So it's similar to this position, but a bit slower. Yeah, you're gonna experiment with Spybot Rush. People have definitely done that, yes. Yeah, it's very much the same thing here. You take a good position, you try to get an advantage in units, you try to get all the metal while not giving up, expanding yourself. In this particular opportunity, he had an opportunity to push through here, but with no radar forward, you can't necessarily see that. And it's most important that you don't lose your units. We can probably have a look. Tina's at 3k, Immort's at 2k. Metal produced. Because they just got so much more of the mid reclaim. Immort's had mexes denied, that kind of thing. He's just well ahead. We have Dearlong, only at 2k. Who's this guy? Trevor Belmont. Only slightly ahead. He probably got slightly more reclaim than Dearlong. Oh, Dearlong forgot to get his mechs. And Trevor has. So you can see taking this the center reclaim, it's a pretty big advantage if you don't give up too much for it. It's entirely possible to give up too much for it. I've seen people not take any of their mexes and just keep pumping grunts until like 4 or 5 minutes. That's bad. You're well behind if you do that. So yeah, he goes into lots of grunts, lots of thugs. Starts generally scaling economy. It plays much more like a standard front position on a lane map. It's the last of the Belmonts, I know, right? Well placed con turret, reaches all of your mexes, gives you lots of space to expand your wins, reaches your lab. Just pumps units. It's fairly simple. Alright, so if we're talking about... I don't have a whole lot of replays for the next things. So Pond is a very strange position. Because it's incredibly flexible. It has the possibility, I've seen people go basically every single lab opening from this position. I've done an air lab opening. I've seen hovers, amphibs, vehicles, bots. All of them are perfectly viable. The thing about Pond is that you have the lowest economy of everybody on the map. You have 4 mexes and nothing else. Geo technically has slightly less metal, but he has a Geo, which is huge. The front players have way more metal than you. If they've gotten one 4.3 mex, they're ahead of you. If they get 2, they're well ahead. Only because Eco steals your Pond reclaim. That is not a particularly relevant thing. Overall. But yes, technically the Pond could claim that as theirs. I think it's probably worse overall for the team if they do. Potentially, it's better, but you'll also cause fights. These straight players are so greedy. I know, right? You gotta greed everything. That's how it is. Eat everything everywhere, I think I said once. But yeah. So Basically, the only thing that's expected of Pond is that you give wins to the front. If you don't give wins to the front, somebody else kind of has to, because it's such a huge advantage. I've seen games basically get win or lost. These for wins are literally the earliest impact anybody can have on the game. Nobody can do anything to affect the outcome of the game faster than these wins. Am I still streaming on Discord? I've broken it. It's fine. So as long as you do that, you're all good. I've seen people go amphib seaplanes. A very common build that people used to do was 5 rovers into 5 blitzes into 5 pincers, which you can just about afford. The rovers, you just try and sneak them in. Blitzes, much the same. You're just trying to find a leak, find a hole. The pincers are pretty much always going to come here. You can send some here. This is often open, but that's nearly always. The last important thing about Pond, it's pretty much their job to defend this. You can blame win for the Pond for the loss. Damn right. If you don't get those wins, you're in a bad spot against somebody who's also got the wins. You can the other person that often gives out wins is Eco, because they don't need to do anything early either. But you probably want to get them somewhere. It is possible to play it without wins. Yes, if Pond doesn't give the wins, it's got to do something that has equal impact on the game as early, basically. And that's very hard to achieve. But it is technically possible. Yeah, Pond's job is also to defend this, because this guy won't have a lab on land. I will not be in CVD. Shuri open with no wind addition. Shuri from Pond is a thing I've seen. It is, yeah, that's entirely reasonable if you can micro Shuri as well. It's tricky, but yes. Yeah, this guy won't have a lab. You'll defend this shore. You've got to be paying attention. Part of Pond's job is basically putting out fires. I've seen Emery used to play basically just making like 4 labs, just making ticks, sending them to go and stop whatever was going wrong. Anything that was going wrong on the map, send 30-40 ticks at it, hope it goes away. Or more. Hundreds of ticks. So in my notes, an important thing to mention: how much E-Reclaim is there in Seas? There's quite a fair bit. However, it's like 60, 70,000? 70,000-ish. It's at half speed. So they reclaim at 20 per second. If you have a res sub that's not doing anything, sure, grab it. But it's not something that you can actually use to prop up your economy, really. It's just too inefficient. It's the same as one tidal, basically. So if you want that, just make a tidal instead. It's really annoying. I wish that Nicoxis had made it so that it was a 58 reclaim. But yeah, it's worse than tidals. Just make tidals. Yeah. So the last thing I was going to say about Geo in particular, kind of the standard is Zarush. This guy's done a very slow Zar. So a Zar, I know it is a bit of a bummer. No, you don't reclaim that. But yeah, Zar generally should arrive on the front at about 6:30. And it's strong against, yes, it's the good old Zar. Good old Zar. It's just really strong. It It kills commanders very quickly. 4 shots to kill a commander. It murders T1. I'm sure we've all seen it. But it does have counters. The good old... I was looking, Discord got distracted. Good old spybot. Just a spybot into a D-gun. That's very common. Sneaky Pete. I think that having somebody making a Sneaky Pete on front should probably always happen. This guy can open arm fairly easily. Arm vehicles are completely viable. Centurions are viable from that position. I think they're a little bit weaker from here, but it's fine. But having an arm player making a Sneaky Pete is very good. Very, very good. Basically, anything you do from Geo kind of has to be able to deal with the Tsar. It's fine to not go it. Tsar is a Janus with more range. Kinda, yeah. It's a really big Janus that doesn't die. 4 shots commander, murders T1. Very effective against T2 as well. Hounds, spiders. Sheldons do pretty good against Tsars. Sheldons can counter Tsar, but Sheldons are really slow. Is there a slight role difference between the two fronts? Kind of, yes. This guy needs to be faster. I don't find this guy can be more flexible. This guy needs to take control over this front line as pretty early, because it's very hard for this guy to have units out fast enough to stop leaks. Generally, how to slow down the Tsar? Heavy tick spam. Tick spam works, but it's kind of expensive. Just jammers. Having jammers in good spots is very helpful against the Tsar, because a D-gun is always a threat. Cloak and D-gun is always a threat to the Tsar. Yeah, but other than that, as a front player, spam. Spread your units out. Play defensively. If you have pop-up turrets, T1 pop-ups, keep them on hold fire. They'll stay down. You can pop them up to do damage. When they're staying down, they take much less damage. So it provides an area of threat that takes a long time for them to kill. But against the Tsar, you're relying on your Geo. Either you get a cloak and D-gun, or you're relying on your Geo to deal with it. A very common, a semi-common strategy for dealing with it. Snipers are a very good one. I've seen abductors. I've seen spybot. I've seen... I've nearly killed a Tsar once with just grunts. If you let it overextend outside of its LLTs. Banishers, yeah. Heavy T1 transport. The heavy T1 transport can fly in and pick it up, technically. It should never happen. But yes, that is a possibility. Basically, you want something that can lock it down or that outranges it. Anything outside of that works. Anything inside of those, that works. There's also a Geo build I've seen. Generally only used when you know the GOC player here is strong. Where you go bot lab. Sakacom for killing Tsar support and rush it with tick. The problem is that the com is really vulnerable to the Tsar. So you need to be able to get close enough. You need to get in range. And they have, I believe the Tsar is slightly faster. 41, I think Commander's 38. Yeah, 38. So you need to you need to have either done it sooner, or the Tsar will just kill your comm. If they might mess up their micro, which is entirely possible. So yeah, the Tsar is also a thing that I see people mess up with a lot. You don't actually want to try and dive on commanders. The job of the Tsar is yet again to be a problem, and it's to stay a problem that they have to deal with. You just drive it backwards and forwards along here. You kill everything. You slowly work your way forwards, killing everything in the way. If you're going this direction, like in a straight line, you're probably doing something wrong, because you're leaving yourself vulnerable. So this comes to another thing that I need to mention, which is about what happens a bit later on from the front line. Once you have T2 units coming from your geo, you need to look to see what holes are missing in the composition that's on the front. If you have a Tsar, how do you support the Tsar? If you have Starlights, how do you support the Starlights? Basically, you need to have something providing vision. You need to have a meat shield. You need something to deal with their spam. That's the basics, I guess. So if you see, this guy's making medium tanks. This guy's making Starlights. People forget how cheap T2... The T2 jammers are very good, yes. The bots and vehicles are very, very good. Little bit vulnerable, but yes, very good. But go back to what I was saying. This guy's making medium tanks. This guy's making Starlights. This guy should be thinking provide vision and deal with spam. Butler and Twitcher indeed can make the jammer bots and vehicles. Not the vehicles, the jammer bots. It's hugely about a vision game, as most Frontlines are. So if we look to see what this guy can actually see, there's some units here, there's some port key. He doesn't have any idea what's in here, because there's a jammer. There's a jammer over here as well. This would be... pardon me. It would be pretty scary. Try to be in jammers. Try to get vision in jammers. This is part of the reason why you want to have some guy spamming units to provide vision. You don't necessarily need to have a stream of grunts running in. Have a bunch of grunts. Grab one, send him forward to get vision. You don't need to spam them and sacrifice them, because it does get quite expensive. But if you've got 20 grunts, you can just send one in to provide vision as it's required. Ticks are cheaper, so you can spam chicks more easily. Hello, Sewer Strut. Good evening. It's afternoon here. Yes. What else?